Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to the Scrap FX Art Journal channel. Today we're going to be making a night journal page using a grungy layered background effect. So I'm working in my Use It Up journal. You can see I've got a big pool of grey, Payne's grey ink on the background. And I'm just going in, I had some extra ink left over, so I'm just using it up. And this is what I do quite regularly to make my backgrounds. It looks like a hot mess, but that's okay because we're going to put stuff over the top. This is just to get something in the background. For those people who are really afraid of a white page, it's a really great technique to sort of take the fear out of it. Because it looks like a mess, you're not going to ruin it by doing anything else to it. So once that had dried, I just went to my stash of Scrap FX stamps. And I'm just trying to get some more out of my little box that sits next to me. And I'm going to use some archival inks in some of the colours that I've got on the page already. So I'm trying to replicate and repeat colours. I'm going in with the lighter colours first, so the oranges and the yellows and so on, then going on to the darker colours. So if they do overlap, then I'm not going to have to re-ink my pads to get the colours back again. So I'm just going in with the blues and greens and stamping that in the background. So with big stamps like this, you're probably not going to get the most detailed impression, but it's enough to give you something in the background. The other thing with foam stamps are they actually retain an awful lot of ink. So you can actually get a few stampings out of them, which is really, really handy. So now I'm just going in with this line marking stamp, which again is a new stamp from Scrap FX. And just adding a whole heap of random images over the background. And already you can kind of see this page starting to be tied together. Even though you've got one really dark splodge on one side and then lots of different colours on the other side, it kind of just pulls everything together, which is what you're doing. You're trying to make everything look balanced. So the next thing I'm doing is going in with some of the new rice paper collage papers from Scrap FX. This is Sketchings #1, I think, from Michelle Logan. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. I just adore it. And I have to stop myself from covering my whole page with it. So I'm just tearing it up into small strips and then gluing it using matte medium onto my journal page. Now the great thing about it, and unfortunately it doesn't show up very well in this video, is it does go some sort of translucent. You can see that on the left hand side up the top, where you can see that gear coming through. You can see what is underneath it, which is really handy. It means that while you've done that beautiful stuff in the background, it's not being hidden. So I'm now going in with the letters and numbers rings. This is the large one, and stamping all over. And again, this sort of helps tie the page together. So by overstamping the collage pieces in the background, it sort of makes it all blend together. And it's all about finding that common thread, I suppose, between it all. So this is a little Mike making circle stamps, and I'm just going in with purple, just choosing which ones I want to use and stamping around. Again, the great thing about the foam stamps is they are thin and they are flexible, so even though the rest of my stamp was a little bit dirty, I could sort of bend it up so it wasn't going to get in the way. I knew on this page I wanted to use this intersections mask, but I wanted to use it as a stamp. I didn't want to actually cover up my background, but I just wanted to have those lines and intersections. So I've just rolled out some white paint onto my glass mat, and then I'm using my brayer to cover over the top of it, and I'm using it as a big stamp on my page. The usual way you'd use a mask is to obviously sponge over the top of it and peel that away, but because I wanted to have the background show through so much, I wanted to do the opposite. So once I've got my background, which I'm really, really happy with, now I'm going to go in with my focal image. And again, I'm going back to using the new Collage rice papers. I really am addicted to these at the moment. I'm using them in so many things. So I'm going in and again with my gel medium gluing her down to the bottom of my page. And again, you can see on her face how translucent that is. You can see those images from the background coming through. So I seal these by putting the gel medium at the back, and I put it over the top as well. I am using a matte gel medium instead of a gloss. Gloss actually makes rice papers and tissue papers go more translucent, but I knew I wanted to use colour pencils over the top, so I wanted to have something that was matte and had a little bit of tooth that would grip to it. If you've only got gloss gel medium, you can always paint over the top layer with some clear gesso, and that will put the tooth back on the page for you. So I'm just going in, I'm actually being really heavy-handed with my shading on this. She ends up actually looking completely purple. I do like to use purple when I'm shading on human figures as my dark shading, but I don't tend to cover the whole face purple. I got a little bit carried away with this girl, but that's okay. It fits in with the rest of the page. So I'm trying to work it back with some of my lighter colours, but it doesn't quite get rid of all the black that I had. Going in and doing her eyes, and then I'll go in and do her hair as well. So just putting in the whites of her eyes and the irises, and going in and colouring her hair. So I find, particularly over the collage rice papers, that because the rice paper itself has a little bit of texture and tooth, using colour pencils over the top is really fantastic way to add a little bit of extra detail and finish to your piece. Now I'm just going in with my Posca paint pen to add in the whites of the eyes instead of doing it before. I'm also putting in a little bit of highlight and scribbly bits into her hair. They don't come up on screen, but when you get the close-up at the end and when you sort of see it in person, you actually see those little white highlights really pop through. On the right-hand page, I also used the quote which was on the rice paper, which says, "Here's to good women, may we know them, may we raise them, may we be one." And just again to make it pop out from the background a little bit, I'm just going in with my white paint pen and just doing a little bit of a shadow, or highlight I suppose, not really a shadow if it's white, around the letters just to pop it out a little bit. One of my things that I find with gluing things like this down, usually having the white halo around things like on the quote really bugs me, but the fact that it's sort of all one quote, it actually helps it pop out of the page a little bit and makes it easier to read, which I really don't mind. So there is my grungy layered background for you. It's a really cool technique, and again, if you're a scrapbooker or a card maker, make one of those techniques on some of your cardboard and cut it up and use it as part of your element, so you could do die cut through it and you'll come up with some really cool effects. Until next time, bye for now.